What's up, people? Good evening. Hope you guys are well, and we've got ourselves a little bit of extra information concerning the upcoming NFL draft. And given the fact that the Seahawks have a top five pick this year, given the fact that all this stuff happening at the top of the draft is so very important to us, I think that it's good to stay on top of it. No matter how small or how insignificant it might be, I think it's good to stay on top of this stuff. And it's also, beyond that, just kind of amusing that a team owner can be this incompetent, this openly incompetent. I mean, certainly there are owners across this league who are stealthily incompetent. Some would argue that the Seahawks even have one of those owners right this very moment. But to be this openly incompetent to the point where not only do you give up the ghost, but you give up the ghost and I personally believe you, I mean, that says something. That's a different level. So, earlier this morning, we had a little bit of an interesting press conference starring one Jim Irsay, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts. As I'm sure you all know, the Indianapolis Colts pick one pick ahead of us in the upcoming draft. They have the 4, we have the 5. And because of that, what the Colts do is hugely impactful on what the Seahawks will be able to do when their pick comes up. So let's go over it real quick. This first tweet is from Albert Breer. Jim Irsay may have tipped his team's hand, saying Indy favored an offensive coach, knowing we're going to have to find a young quarterback to develop. GM Chris Ballard's head whipped around as he said it. So, if this were most other owners in the league, I would write it off. I wouldn't think much of it. I would say, oh, it's gamesmanship. Oh, it's a leveling war. It's you know that I know that you know that I know that I know that you know that going all the way down, and you can't tell what is what. But it's Jim Irsay. So honestly, I think he's just being transparent here when he doesn't need to be and shouldn't be. So the implication is that the Colts and Jim Irsay are targeting a quarterback with their 4th overall selection in this upcoming draft. Now, let me just say this before I go any further here. That I didn't need Jim Irsay to say it to suspect it, right? Like, you look at that Colts team, they've got Matt Ryan, who they're clearly done with. They've got Nick Foles, who has no magic left, and Sam Ellinger, who just didn't do anything when he had a couple opportunities this year. Of course, they need a quarterback, right? They've got a pretty decently invested in offensive line. They've got a really good running back. They've got some good pieces on that defense, only a couple, but it's a team that clearly needs a quarterback, so it's not like he really ruined anything when he said this. That being said, he then went on to say, oh, let me pause this video here real quick because the pertinent quote here is put in the tweet from Dov Kleiman. The Alabama guy doesn't look bad, I'll tell you. So he's talking specifically about Bryce Young. And again, if this were most other owners in the league, I wouldn't pay it any mind. I would assume it's misdirection or maybe misdirection or misdirection. But I kind of don't think it's any of those things because it's coming from Jim Irsay, who says a lot of dumb things and gives up a lot of stuff, a lot of information that he doesn't need to. So from this particular owner, I'm inclined to believe it. So not only is he saying we're probably going to take a quarterback with our number 4 overall pick, which was kind of obvious, he's also saying which quarterback is his favorite. And if you take him at his word, which I do because it's Jim Irsay, that tells you quite a bit. First of all, I think we all understand that Bryce Young may not be available at number 4. A lot of people, myself included, still suspect that Houston will take him at number 2. So this is obviously useful to a team like Houston. If they actually don't want Bryce Young, they can make it look like they want Bryce Young and get the Colts to trade up with them so they can get Bryce Young. You know, that's the gamesmanship here. That's why giving away information like this is theoretically bad. And the fact that Jim Irsay has proven in the past that he'll say stupid stuff makes me feel like this is not him trying to outsmart anybody. It's just him saying stuff that he doesn't need to say. So on that level, it might be kind of bad. So it seems like Jim Irsay's announcing his personal interest at least. And of course, as the owner of the team, he has a lot of sway there. in a player like Bryce Young. So here's what I take away from this. Here is the impact to me as a Seahawks fan. Look, we already kind of suspected going into this draft that if the order stays as is in the top 5, you're going to see 2 quarterbacks get drafted. Houston's going to take one, Indy's going to take one. That does not change. However, what this impacts, and this I think is significant, is substantial, and does have a significant impact on what the Seahawks can do. Houston just hired a defensive coach in DeMeco Ryans. They made a big commitment to DeMeco Ryans. That team is really bad. That team doesn't have a whole lot going for it on any level. They have Laramie Tunsil, I guess, right? He's good. But not a whole lot else going on right now that you're excited about in terms of the future. 1 or 2 pieces that are interesting, and they obviously have a lot of picks, but in terms of stuff on that roster, it's weak. So it is possible, there's definitely room for Houston to say, you know what, we just got DeMeco Ryans, a former defensive coordinator, as our head coach, gave him a 6-year deal. Maybe we don't take the quarterback yet. Maybe we build the team first and get the quarterback next year. Maybe we just roll with Davis Mills and have another really bad season again. I mean, Houston's had a few bad seasons in a row. What's another bad one really going to do to you? Is it really going to gut you to have one more crappy season when your franchise has had mostly crappy seasons throughout their entire existence? So I wonder if Houston is going to sit there and say, hey, now is not the time to take a quarterback. No matter how much we do like Bryce Young, we're going to take Jalen Carter, we're going to take Will Anderson, we're going to take a defensive player. We're not going to go quarterback. And then that opens up some intriguing possibilities further down the draft, because we all know that Chicago has already kind of committed to not taking a quarterback. Arizona basically can't take a quarterback, at least not that high. So you get down to number 4. It is conceivable that either all the teams ahead of Indy have taken a player that is not a quarterback, or they have traded up or traded down with other teams that are going to take who knows. Like, we all suspect that Houston favors Bryce Young and Indy favors, now we kind of get an indication they also favor Bryce Young. Who would Vegas favor if they traded up? Who would Atlanta favor if they traded up? Who would Carolina favor? It's really hard to know right now. So if that happens, then at the very least, and I take this as a positive, Indy is sitting there at number 4. And if Bryce Young falls through to number 4, Indy is going to take him. If let's just give an example here. Let's say Houston decides, let's trade down. Let's get a defensive player and let someone else trade up for the quarterback. What if Houston trades down with Atlanta? And then Atlanta takes CJ Stroud. And then you get to Indy. And Bryce Young is just sitting there for them. They can take him. That means Bryce Young's off the board for the Seahawks. And yes, some of you may disagree. I think that's great news. Basically, Indianapolis is kind of acting as a guarantee that Seattle will not be able to take Bryce Young, which I like, because I don't like Bryce Young that much. I don't think he's worth a top 5 pick. I don't see it. I don't see what makes him worthy of being taken in the top 5 personally. So, to me, the news that Indianapolis apparently likes Bryce Young more than other quarterbacks is awesome. I love it. I'm a big fan of it, and I hope it's actually real. So, not only is it a little more likely Seattle will be able to take a prospect that I personally think is worthy of the pick at number 5 if Indy likes Bryce Young, but it also increases the odds of a defensive player being there if you are like me and still kind of thinking about the draft in those terms. And it also, and I do want to point this part out, because I don't want people to think I'm getting tunnel vision about Geno Smith. I'm not sitting here thinking to myself, okay, we better give Geno Smith all the money he wants or else I'm mad. No. It also increases the odds of CJ Stroud being there, who is my QB1 in this class. Because right now, if there are no trades in the top 5, which is possible, Chicago and Arizona are going to take defensive play, or they're not going to take a quarterback. Houston supposedly likes Bryce Young the best. Indianapolis also supposedly likes Bryce Young the best. So one way or the other, if those two teams do go quarterback, we know Bryce Young is going to be one of them. So therefore, the other team is going to either take Will Levis or CJ Stroud. So therefore, there is a very good chance that CJ Stroud falls through, because while there's no way to confirm it as of right now, and I don't have any inside information, I suspect that Indianapolis would favor Levis over Stroud. So that means that QB1 falls to QB3 if that guesstimate is correct. Or maybe there's a huge curveball here and Houston ends up taking a defensive player and Arizona and Chicago, and then Indy takes Bryce Young as the QB1, and then you've got the choice between my two favorite quarterbacks in this class, Levis and CJ Stroud. So that was all kind of a little bit of a complex maneuvering of the scenarios here, but the main takeaway to me, as a Seahawks fan, looking at this, my main takeaway, we now have a barrier between us getting Bryce Young. And I like that. I like that barrier. I embrace that barrier. I don't really want Bryce Young. I don't see how he's worth a top 5 pick. That's just me. I know some people disagree. That's cool. Some people might be saddened by this. But now Houston can kind of do whatever. Houston could trade down. Houston could take Jalen Carter. Houston could take Will Anderson. And Bryce Young still won't fall to us because Indy will be there to take him. That's my main takeaway from this. That's the information that Jim Irsay gave away that he didn't need to give away. So let me know what you think down below. That's my main take right now. Thank you, Jim Irsay. That's why you're a bad owner. All right, I'll see you guys tonight on Twitch. Should be doing Hogwarts Legacy. Go Hawks.